work out. Now, at this point, it's good to describe a climb and a route cut. If you aren't careful, it is very easy to tear out wood. A climb cut, as a cutter is spinning, and you feed it into the work this way, that is called a route cut. The angle of attack, when it comes out of the wood, will have a tendency to be cutting away from the body. That will run you a very high risk of tear out. If you climb cut, which means it would be going in the direction of the turn, you are cutting into the body. You have to be aware that that cut will give you a very nice finish, but can have a tendency to run away from you. We are removing such a small amount of wood. It really is not that big of a deal, but it is something that you need to be aware of. Now, you can, I'm sure you've seen the Stuart McDonald diagram where they do a little bit here and a little bit here and a little bit here and then go all the way around. It really does not matter which method you find. I've gravitated to climb cutting. It works for me. I don't tear things out. And all I'm going to do now is put a little piece of tape around here. That will give me a point where my bearing can ride, so that if I do spin a bearing, I don't have to worry about it marking my wood up. And it does not take very long to do. And at this point, I'm ready to do my routing. And when I'm done, I'll lift the tape and do a clean out cut. Now this does get a little noisy and it does get a little dusty, but that's part of the fun. You noticed I took two cuts there. I always do it that way. I like to get a nice firm cut, and we can see everything's nice and clean, everything's nice and even. Now I can lift this off, and I'm going to do one more cut, and that's going to be a clean out cut. Now the back is always notoriously the worst of what we want to route, and I'm going to do one more time, nice and gently. And here we can route or climb cut. And that's all there is to it. The next part we would have to do is put our binding on. And we can test fit everything. And I don't know if you can see it or not, but that joint is just about perfect. And that is why binding machines have become so popular for the guitar builders. It really takes the guesswork out of this process, and as you can see, it's not that difficult. Doesn't matter which jig you use, but you're going to find that most jigs are based on the same simple principle of holding the cutter parallel. To do the top, we'll just turn this around, measure the top, and we'll do it the exact same way. It's not very difficult to do. And with that, in a few minutes, you'll see what this will look like all cut. And I hope you can see how clean and how square these routes are when you compare to the side and to where it's actually cut. So you can see how nice and square that is. Now we do the top. Same principle, stick it in. The only difference I'm going to do now is we're going to make the top level. Now with the top, this is a piece of Lutz spruce. Lutz will have a tendency to want to tear out a little bit more than some of the others. There are ways that you can help control this, and I will show you that very simply. I usually complain that I hate tape, but this is a time when tape can come in very handy. Seven and an eighth. 7 and an eighth. You'll notice I do the 2 blocks first. Then I can just pretty much eyeball these in. You probably could use just a router at this point if you wanted to, because the top is a lot more square to the sides than the back is. And all we're doing is creating a bed so that this does not wiggle. Now, to help avoid tear out, Lutz and red spruce are very fibrous. And I'll just put a little bit here on all apexes of the bouts. And if you notice, it's about 1 inch in, 1.5 inches in. Once you get beyond that point, your risk of tear out is minimalized because of the support of the grain of the wood. You can also